All right, welcome, welcome, welcome to this episode of Marketing Spotlight. I am so excited for today's guests. I'm always excited, but I'm a little especially excited today to talk to Rachel Lee. I can't remember how we got connected, but if you are watching the video, you can see her whole getup and her background. And I think as soon as I saw it when we hopped on Zoom together, I was like, I'm going to love this person. Like, this is totally my human. For those of you who can't see, there's a giant Pikachu back there. There's a lot of light and pink. There's another Pikachu. There's an electric guitar hanging on the wall, not a literal one, but a cutout of one. It is so much fun. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel. Rachel, I won't tell you too much. I know she's a branding strategist and graphic designer. And so that's how we got connected. So without me saying anything more, Rachel, I want you to tell the good people who you are and what you do.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on this call. I feel like you always hype people up. I'm like, geez, I got to keep up with that introduction.
If
Well, I'll do my best. Hi, everyone. My
anyone
name
can,
is
you can,
Rachel.
Rachel.
I appreciate that. Well, my jam is personal branding. I do have a background in art and design. So the thing that most people come to me for is helping them capture their vibe in something that they can see. I especially love working with personal brands because it's not just a conversation about how can we position you strategically to get you in front of your audience. It's more of a conversation around who are you? What makes you cool? And how can we really draw that out so that people can see it? And I feel like when I start to talk to people about branding in this perspective, they get excited because it's like I give them that blank check of, oh, you mean I could just be whatever I want to be? And I'm like, heck yes, like that is what my work is about. And I do that for personal brands, entrepreneurs specifically, but also for small businesses who want to infuse a little bit more fire, spice, and sparkle into the way that their brand feels. So I like to say I help my clients with all of those things. But yes, for those of you who are tuning in audibly, you got to check out the video recording because I've got a lot of stuff going on in my background.
It's a lot of fun, yes. And I love something that I think just clicked for me as you were talking is the fact that you give, like you said, you give people the freedom to just be who they are in business. And I think it's ironic that a lot of us, I know for myself, like I went into business so that I wouldn't have anyone telling me what to do. And I know that's true for a lot of us. And yet we end up having other people tell us what to do, and or we think we need someone else to tell us what to do, especially when it comes to something like branding and marketing and how you communicate with your clients and your prospects. It can feel like there's one way to do it, and it has to be the right way. And if it's not the right way, you're going to fail and end up living in a van down by the river, right? So there's
Yeah.
um,
It's actually quite sad. Like I remember when I first started business, I originally went in thinking exactly that. I'm like, I'm going to be my own boss. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be a fantastic experience. And then the moment that I actually dove in and started to realize, oh, geez, I have to do my own marketing. There's so many things attached to it. But there's this one thing that I noticed that I didn't like, which is the fact that there's this weird unspoken professional standard that we feel that we
mhm,
have to comply by in order for people to trust us and do business with us. And
mhm.
even though, yes, of course, professionalism is very important, we should treat people with kindness and courtesy and respect, all of the above. We are not in the corporate world anymore. We run
Yeah.
the show. No one's telling you that you have to dress this way because this is your business. You don't have a manager breathing down your neck because you decided to wear the wrong shoes to work today. I also work on Zoom, so what I wear on the bottom actually also doesn't matter. But yeah, isn't that so weird that we feel this pressure to show up a certain way, even though technically we are our own boss? So
hmm
weird.
It is weird. Yeah. And I get it. Like I've been there too. I've been the whole like, oh, I'm a business owner now and I don't actually know anything about owning and running a business. So I'd better get some advice. And there's advice. And
Yeah.
then there's, yeah, people like you who work with you instead of just giving you a blanket. This is what everyone has to do. And I want to zero in on something you said because you mentioned the keyword trust, which is
Mm,
what branding and marketing is all about, is earning people's trust. And you said that we feel people won't trust us if we're not super professional. And again, I get that. Been there, done that. Especially as a woman, there's a whole other layer to that. But I do think if you show up as yourself authentically, that's when people trust you. If you try to put on this corporate veneer and it doesn't fit who you are or how you want to work with people, that's there's gonna be a disconnect and they'll sense it, especially if your marketing and your branding is super corporate and then they talk to you and you've got pink hair and Pikachu in the background and all these other things and they're like, wait a minute, that is not the expectation that was set for me. So I love
Yeah.
that you encourage people to be who they are because that is how you build trust with people.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. I feel like it's also unsustainable to try to put up this front and then when that's not actually who you are, you always have to remind yourself, oh no, wait, I am professional Rachel now.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep switching those hats. And at some point, something's going to slip, or you just get so tired that you just don't want to do it anymore. Like
It's
I went through
exhausting.
that for the first few years of my business because I thought I needed to show up a certain way. So I had professional Rachel on. I wore literally the exact same clothes I wore to my full-time job, but
Mm-hmm.
just, on Zoom or to networking events. I branded my business the same semi corporate way. Of course, I ran a creative agency, so I tried to have fun with it. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I created my branding, the script I even told myself was, okay, this is creative, but don't be too creative because you're gonna scare
Ah,
people away. Isn't that so strange?
it is strange.
But yeah, like I got to this snapping point with my business where I just felt like I was lying to people. There's no other
Mm-hmm.
way of saying it, where I would show up to a networking event, suit and tie, actually putting up a front, being like, hey, like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta like invest your time and energy with me because I can take you the distance, the whole nine
Mm-hmm.
yards. When on the back end, I was like, like this doesn't feel authentic to me. I don't want to be this pushy person. I want to just grow with my clients. I just want to be there to support. Like the energy was off, the way it was
Mm-hmm.
presented was off, to the point where I just stopped showing up because everything just felt so bad. And the personal branding thing only happened when I decided to burn everything to the ground and be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to show up as me. And if I scare everyone off, nothing was happening now anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm not losing out on anything if
Yeah.
I decide to do the crazy thing. Thank God it worked out pretty good. Knock on wood. It turned out pretty well. I'm a few years into this new phase of my business now, but if we met in the earlier years, you would be like, who's this girl?
Who? What?
She's completely
Yeah.
different.
Completely different. Yeah. And I latched onto something you said that I want to talk about more because I'm also a creative person. And
Yeah.
I think when I started my business, SEO was a thing. It wasn't as big a thing as it is now. For those of you listening who don't know what I'm talking about, SEO stands for search engine optimization, which basically means making Google your friend so you can show up when people are looking for you. And there's a whole science behind that, and art really, because there's a lot of guesswork. So long story short, I figured out blogging and SEO are too intertwined to do one without the other. I really resisted learning SEO and then stumbled my way into it and actually found that it's fascinating. And one of the reasons I resisted it was because I thought it would stifle my creativity. I thought it would tell me what to write when I thought I should be writing something else for myself or for this other client. And I actually found the opposite to be true. I actually found that by researching what people are looking for, that gives me so much more information and inspiration. I get lots of inspiration when I do keyword research and I see what other people are talking about in my industry and related industries. It's like, oh, yeah, people are asking about this, and I can talk about such and such, and they don't understand how this works, so I can explain it to them, and I'm off and running. So I wonder if you've had any similar kind of experiences where you think something will stifle your creativity and it actually, whether it's giving your creativity parameters or actually giving you inspiration. Is there any, because are certain parameters you have to follow in branding. So how do you apply that?
Yes, absolutely. So I always say that when it comes to branding, the best rule of thumb is less is more. I feel like people tend to go way over the top with their colors, with their graphics, because it has to be pretty, right? Like that's what people think when they see the branding. But if I were to be honest, even from a design perspective, the number one rule of your brand is to make it accessible first before anything else. Because if people can't read your logo or your content, what
Mhm.
are we doing? Right? Like they could get the vibe, but if they're not getting the information, your graphics, your vibe, it's not doing what it's doing, which is it's supposed to support your message, support you in delivering it and getting it in front of your customers. So, this is kind of even like what I was taught when I was in art school, where my teacher all the time would always emphasize, okay, yes, we know you're in art school. We know you're studying design. We know you want to make this pretty, but all of that is useless if people cannot read the content that you're actually putting on the page. So when it comes to branding, one of the biggest parameters is accessibility. We got to make sure that people are able to read it and understand it. Are people getting a migraine by reading the words because you put it on like a weirdly colored background,
Mhm.
or picked a font that just is completely illegible? So there are certain parameters with that. I'd say the number one rule is definitely it has to be accessible. And then the second thing, I think it goes down to every brand specifically also has boundaries, and it's important to set what those are. So then you don't get into a situation where you make a decision for your brand where you go off brand. So,
Yeah.
for example, even for my brands, I have certain parameters around it's playful, but not to the point where it's juvenile. And when
Mm.
I make certain creative decisions for my brand, because I'm always tinkering with it and growing and evolving it, I will come across some situations where I'm deciding to try this new style of post, for example. And
Mhm.
as I'm creating the graphics, I'm doing the words and the visuals, and I always run it through one last brand check before I put it out into the world. And I ask myself these questions. Does it feel playful or does it cross that line? And if it does, I'm going to have to pull it back a little bit. So that way, when you set these parameters for yourself, it kind of ensures that everything you put out, even if it's the first time you're ever trying it for your brand, it still falls within those parameters. So you don't end up in a situation where you put something out there and it's so far left field that people
Mhm.
don't recognize it anymore.
Mhm.
So that's something that I always recommend for people is that boundaries are your friend. I think people might think that it's restrictive because it's like a box, but it's actually very helpful to help you kind of paint between the lines so you're not left guessing, because most of
Mhm.
the time that we lose is spent making these tiny little decisions about which shade of blue should I use, and then before you know it 3 hours are gone and your post never ended up
Mhm.
going out. So boundaries are your friend is what I would have to say.
Yes, 100%. And I do want to ask you about something in particular because I know you posted on LinkedIn, you were kind of going through this branding process for yourself, and you were
Yes.
that kind of brought up a lot for you as far as, your brand, but also, oh, this process actually works. So can you take us through a little bit of what that was like to take your own system? First of all, I do want to say less is more, 100%. That is so true for writing as well as for the graphics, but I'm on a tangent now, so I'll bring it back to what I was talking about, which is, yeah, let you to talk about that process that you went through, your own branding process for your own brand and what that was like.
Oh, isn't it so cool when you get to take yourself through your process and drink your own Kool-Aid and realize, oh wow, now I know why my clients hire me, because it's really hard to do it for
Yeah,
yourself.
it is.
Um, yeah, like it's funny because I specialize in 1 week brand setups for my clients. There's a system, there's a process for it. Everything is bookended between 2 calls, and we literally get everything done in a week. So I thought, the expert here was like, oh, I could just run myself through my own system. It'll be pretty straightforward. It
Yeah.
did not take 1 week. It did not take 1 month. It is month. Let me see. I said that I would start this endeavor at the end of last year. It is mid-March right now, and I'm just rounding up the final pieces to do the big official launch at the end of this month. So you do the math, it's been a hot second. And I would have to say that even though I did run myself through my own process, I realized that there were many moments where I was just way up in my own head about
Hmm.
my own stuff because, and I'm not sure if this is something that's just specifically related to branding, but sometimes, even though technically, yes, I have the skills to execute, I have all the strategy to back it up. But when you work on your own stuff, there are some moments where you're just so caught up in your own head, your insecurities, you start second guessing yourself, you start asking, is this actually right? Like, should I be doing it? You start shitting all over yourself.
Yes.
And the process ends up dragging on for quite some time. So I'm very thankful to say I do have a business partner that I tag team this with. So when I start getting up in my own head, I'll pull my business partner over to be like, all right, I'm working on this, need your opinion on it. And he'll stare at it for a second and be like, let's do this one. And it makes it so much easier for me. But there's a lot of pieces that go together with the rebrand where we ran through our own process of doing our messaging and our visuals. But outside of that, which is the signature process that we do for our clients, we also have to set up our own site. There are digital products we had to create. We're lining things up to shoot some video master classes. There's a bunch of things that are outside of what we typically offer to our clients that we're working on for ourselves. So therefore, we are about 3 months in to the rebrand. And thank goodness we're going to cross the finish line very soon. I'm slightly cursing myself for giving myself a hard deadline and just telling the world, I'm like,
Hmm.
March 30th is the date, guys. Like, no
Yeah.
excuses for you or for us. We're going to get it out. So I'm apprehensively eyeing my calendar every day, like checking off the days of, all right, like T-minus 9 days till launch.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been fun though. I make it sound horrible, but it's been a very fun process, and I feel like I learned a lot about myself just running through it, figuring out where are some kinks where I might want to watch out for, and reapply it to the way that I support my clients. So it's been a good time.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I also have a series of questions I like to ask my clients when I onboard them, which is essentially getting to their brand voice guidelines. And yeah, going through those questions, we're like, man, these are hard to answer. Like, it is so much
Yeah.
harder to do it for yourself. And I always tell my people too, that's a lot of the value that I provide is having that outside perspective and being able to see
Mm,
it through A, someone who's not you, but also be closer to understanding what this looks like to your prospects, to your ideal clients. And yes, I do want to go back to what you said about less is more, because that is
mm,
so true of writing. And I feel like the more I learn, and I'm still learning this, like what not to put in your writing and how much you need to cut out when you're editing. That's why I always edit. That's why I always write it and leave it alone for at least 24 hours and then come back and edit it. Because that's when I go, I don't need this word. I don't need this sentence. This whole paragraph is useless. That's when it gets a lot shorter than and then the first draft. I think Stephen King said his second draft is always like 10% shorter than his first draft because that's when you go, and you're just cutting stuff out. So yeah, keep it super simple. It is so important in branding. I do have a question. I usually ask my guests this at the beginning, and I got so excited that we jumped into other stuff. But I do always like to know, how did you get started in this? What brought you into the world of branding and graphic design?
ooh. I like to call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I
Right.
did not grow up in a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't go to business school to study this. I was the art kid. I was that kid who always was doodling on her test paper, not fully paying attention in class. I fully went the pursued my passion in studying design in art school, and I just knew that I wanted to make things for a living. It was pretty straightforward for me. And of course, what they teach you in school is, oh, if you want to make things, go become a graphic designer, work at a marketing company, you'll have a great time. And I drank that Kool-Aid. So I went the whole route. I worked full time as a graphic designer at a local marketing company and thought that I would be happy because they gave me this big shiny computer, the software, it moved so fast. I was pushing pixels every single day. But I realized that I wasn't happy. And it was probably what I could call like a quarter life crisis moment where I was 24 at that time. The little that 24-year-olds know about what they personally want. I realized that it wasn't just making things that made me happy. What I actually really enjoyed doing was talking to people about what they wanted to create and then acting as like a creative translator to help them problem solve something tangible of, oh, here's this idea you have. What's the best way that we can communicate that using
Hmm.
design? So I was missing half of that equation because at my full-time job,
Mm.
it was my manager who sent me a project brief saying, make this. And it was already technically pre-constructed, pre-strategized. I did not have to think. And
Mhm.
I remembered I felt even weirdly embarrassed about my job where I was like, I can't even call myself a designer because I'm not creative problem solving. I'm just a
Mhm.
pixel pusher. Like, that's all I
Yeah.
am. Like, I felt really down on myself, especially when I had such high hopes and expectations for what this experience would be. So, um, I ended up making the decision to freelance just on the side of my full time job to see what other things were out there. I didn't know. They didn't teach me anything about business in art school. So, the little that I knew was that when I have this creative skill, it's easy to maybe just pick up some side projects on the side of my full time job, just taste test a little bit of everything before I decide where I want to plant my flag. And that was kind of like my introduction into the world of networking and small business. Very quickly, I realized that I enjoyed my side projects a whole lot more than my full time
Hmm.
job. And naive me, again, at the age of 24, decided that within a few months, I would end up quitting my full time job cold turkey and then just switching over to starting this thing called a business. I quit my full time job at the start of 2019. I just jumped into the deep end and then realized I didn't know how to swim. It was one of those situations where I cut off all of my full-time income and then realized, oh geez, it's not just the fact that I need to be good at what I do to run a business. There's a lot of other things that I don't know anything about. So that first year, it was a mad scramble. I was doing a little bit of all of the above. I was trying to figure out what I wanted. So I tried a whole bunch of different types of like graphic design projects with different types of businesses. I was trying to figure out the business thing, what it even meant. How do I get this set up legally and structurally so that it's sound? And in the mishmash of all of those things, that was when I discovered and fell in love with branding. So in the process of me trying all of these things, you know how like the first few years is you try something and you're like, I am never doing that again. That was a horrible experience. Never
Hmm.
again. Oh, this is pretty cool. Let's put this in the maybe bucket. So I kind of
Hmm.
did a lot of that in the first year. And when I discovered branding, I think my first project ever was someone asked me to design a logo for them. And I was like, $200. I'm like, I'm rich. That's like the most I've ever like charged ever for anything in my life before. And I loved it, not just because of the way the creative process was, but I think I was fascinated by the fact that a brand is the only thing a designer can create that would live absolutely forever. It's not like a lot of those things that I created before, where it's like I designed like a pamphlet for an event. It gets chucked into the recycling afterwards. It's not like the packaging that I would design. People physically rip it up and throw it into the garbage after, or like a TV ad gone in 2 seconds. Within 2 weeks, the whole campaign is like, it's not used anymore. And for someone who puts a lot into the work that I do, it kind of hurts when I see
Yeah.
the stuff that I create just become obsolete so quickly. So when I discovered branding, I was fascinated because a brand is just this thing that evolves over time. I'm obsessed with
Hmm.
Pokemon, if you could see the Pikachu. So I'm like, it evolves, it becomes better and cooler, and it grows and has the ability to impact and touch so many people. It's not something that ever really goes away. So that was why I actually got pulled into the world of branding. I didn't know a whole lot about it, to be really honest. I was just fascinated with its ability to do so much and last so long. And I'm like, I want to make something like that for a lot of people. So I mean, I did like visual branding for a lot of small businesses in the first few years. That's kind of where I planted my flag. Then I went through a whole identity crisis a few years into my business. Call it my second quarter life crisis, where I was suddenly hit with what I shared at the beginning of our conversation about feeling like I was showing up inauthentically, like feeling like I was lying to people with the way I was packaging and presenting myself and my business, and then making the decision just to shut all of it down and then bring it back as a personal brand and doing it in a way that felt a lot more unfiltered. So since then, I've kind of specialized more in personal branding. It honestly started off more as like a personal exploration of who am I and how do I want people to see me? It literally started like that. I didn't even think that I was doing personal branding for myself. I was like, I am just figuring my shit out, was literally what I thought as a like as a human being. I'm like, I gotta decide
Yeah.
on this for myself. Otherwise, I'm gonna feel like I'm all over the place and I don't want that. So
Hmm.
it was very much like a Rachel, you got to decide who you want to be kind of moment. And it turns out it ended up translating into something for the business. And it's cool that I get to say that I get to help people do the same now. Now that I know there's a term for it, it's called personal branding. And it goes beyond just the pretty graphics. Yes, we do the pretty graphics, but the conversation goes a lot deeper than that. So 6 years later, here we are,
Here we are.
still doing the thing. But it was definitely not a straightforward journey. I think there are many points where I was very ready to just throw in the towel. Like, screw this,
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to a job. This is too
Hmm.
challenging. But I am thankful that I stuck through with it.
Awesome. You and I are so the same because I was definitely the kid in school who was writing. And when I
Mm,
wasn't writing, I was in class thinking about my stories and what I was going to write when I got out of class. And
yeah.
yeah. And yeah, then went to school and was told writers don't make any money and I should choose a more practical career. So I thought I was going
No.
to work in publishing and had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, to graduate in '09, right after the job market crashed. So um,
Uh,
yeah,
no.
there were no jobs in publishing. And fortunately, I stumbled my way into this and was like, oh no, there are people who will pay writers. Cool. And I totally resonate with starting out and paying like what now I would consider pennies for a blog post. And at the time, it's like, this is so much money. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this.
People trust me. Like,
Right? Yeah,
it's,
I'm like a
yeah.
professional. And I do remember I was in like an Ann Taylor or something, trying on, literally trying on jackets. Like, is this something that a professional content marketer would wear? What
Yeah.
about and being told, no, that's not professional enough, try again. So yeah, yeah, been there, done that, all the things. I do want to talk real quickly. You mentioned about looking professional. Or
Mm,
no, you talked about your logo, which is awesome. And I'm of course that's where most people start with their brand is I need a logo. But
yeah.
we in the biz know that your brand is not your logo. So can you talk a little bit more about going into the fuller branding strategy and what that looks like when someone works with you?
Absolutely. So, the first thing that I always tell people, of course, we think of the logo because that's the part that people visually recognize. But when we think about the bigger picture of a brand, it's a bigger conversation around identity of who are you, and or your business. What is your business, and how can we capture and communicate that in a way that is unique and special? So it's always a conversation about what are we communicating first before we talk about what does that look like or what does that sound like when it comes to the words. Most of the time when clients come to me, they already have a pretty good idea of what they're trying to communicate because they've been in business for a few years, or they've kind of already tested all of the things. They've DIY'd their brand to death already. And they're like, I know what I don't like. I know what I want, but I just don't have the technical expertise to like make it look the way that I want it to look or sound the way that I want it to sound. So that's usually where I start having a conversation with my clients where they do have a clear picture of here's the vibe that I want my business to have. Here's what I want people to feel. Here's what I want people to know me for. So like my secret sauce or like the thing that makes me special. I already know that. I just need to make it more apparent or communicate it more clearly. And then the question is, now how do I do that? So that's usually where I come into the picture. And honestly, my job is to act as that translator, where I have basically this 1 week intensives process where most of the heavy lifting is honestly at the beginning, where I ask very good questions and dig really, really deep. Where I like to tell my clients that my job is to get into the tiny little crevices of your brain and just extract the things that you didn't even know existed so that I have all the information I need to execute on your brand. So I kind of like, I gather all of my clients' current assets just so I could see what they're working on or working with for their brand right now. I send them on a little image scavenger hunt on the internet to send me some inspiration pictures. Maybe if they've got some Pinterest boards where they have all of the things that they have for their vision board or just things they like. We always like to collect little bits and pieces here. I'm like, whatever you like, send it to me so I have an idea of what you mean when you say I like this type of vibe, or when I say I like this type of pattern, here's what it looks like. So
Mhm.
we get a really good capture of what they want to communicate, and then the rest is very, very easy, where I basically just create the whole darn thing. I show it back to my client. And then because I have an intensive process where we do everything live on the calls, right on the call, I'll kind of show it to my client. I'll be like, what do you think? Let's have a conversation about this. Just tell me what you're feeling, and then we can make tweaks and adjustments from there. And then we basically co create their brand together, which is the super fun part. I actually tell my clients, we cannot cross the finish line without your input. So talk to me here. Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? If it's completely off, don't worry about hurting my feelings. Just give it to me straight. My purpose here is to just act as like your hands and feet, and then you could just tell me what you want, and then I'll make it for you. So by the time we finish the last call that we have together, the client has exactly what it is that they're looking for. And it's just this fun, magical process where we get to play together, and they get to watch me design live if we end up making tweaks to the
Okay.
brand. It's super fun.
Love it. Yeah, I don't get this as much anymore. I was always confused when I started out and I had people who were like hesitant to give me feedback. And I'm like, this
Mm,
content is for you. I'm not emotionally attached to it. So if you want me to make
yeah.
changes, let me know.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel like it's very different when you make content for someone else versus it's like a self-expression.
Yes.
And drawing from like even the work that I do, like I am an artist. I love drawing and sketching and like a lot of things, but the design work that I do for my clients is completely different. And you kind of have to create that separation of, oh, well, when they're giving me feedback, it's because we both agreed we're trying to create something that does XYZ. Our job is not to create something that's like, it's this isn't like the next Mona Lisa. This is not like that kind of masterpiece. This is about checking off the boxes of what you want to communicate, and then just having a conversation about, oh, this design choice checked off this aspect that you're trying to communicate because XYZ. Or, oh no, this color that you chose, it doesn't check off these boxes because XYZ. So it makes our conversation a whole lot easier. So I have to remove the pressure from my clients and tell them, one, there are no wrong answers. And two, you can
100%.
tell me it's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings because our job is to create this. This is for you. So
Hmm.
only you will actually know if we're close to hitting the target on the bullseye or if we're like far left field and we really need to reel it back. Art is totally different. It's like all self-expression. It's whatever you're feeling. There are technically there's no wrong answers either. It's just whatever you feel, you put it out there. But when people do critique that, that's when you have permission to get butthurt when
Yes.
people like criticize your personal art.
We're going to have to do this again because this was so much fun, and I have a million more questions for you, but I am going to let you go and let our listeners slash viewers go. So if they want to continue this conversation with you, if they have a bunch more questions for you, if they want to know what it's like to work with you, where can the good people find you?
Yes, I prefer to hang out on Instagram. It's got all the fun, flashy visual stuff. I love to update my stories frequently too. My handle is Rachel T.Y. Lee. I guess we'll make sure it's in the show notes somewhere. I am on LinkedIn as well, though. I feel like most of my conversations with people actually happen on LinkedIn. So you could probably easily search me with my name, but I do have a very generic name. So I'll probably make sure I have a link to my LinkedIn profile available to you guys as well. Otherwise, you guys are welcome to reach me just through my website. There's a contact form on there that you guys can also fill out. It's just racheltyle.com. Super simple.
Perfect. Love it. Yes. And I am, of course, your host, Allison Verhalen. You can find me over on my website, AV, as in my initials, Allison Verhalen. That is avwritingservices.com. I am mostly on LinkedIn, so that's where you can find me. And I'm also on YouTube. If you're not already watching this on YouTube, come check me out on YouTube at Allison Verhalen Content Marketer. Thanks so much, Rachel. This was a blast.
Totally. Thank you for having me.